The Detroit Pistons, just a year ago, were the worst team in the NBA and were setting records for the most losses in a season. Now, they're in the NBA playoffs and look like an honest-to-goodness contender. Pistons home games used to be an exercise in futility. How long can fans endure the horror of watching their team lose by 30 surrounded by ads for Little Caesars Pizza? Just a year later, the Pistons are amped up, playing energetic basketball in front of roaring, proud fans. They've more than tripled their wins from last year, earned a record of 44-38, and have beat some of the best teams in the league. They look so solid and legit that just 1 year removed, the pain of last season has faded into a dull memory. I found a few reasons for this turnaround that I want to share in this video, but the question remains, can a turnaround like that be at all straightforward? Maybe, or maybe not. And that's the question that I want to answer today. How did the Pistons go from the joke of the league to a legitimate contender in just a year? On December 13th, the Pistons fans had to sit in hollow silence, watching their team get humiliated by the Philadelphia 76ers at home. 2 days later, Detroit traveled to Philly with a chance for revenge. But their record was 2-23. Clearly something was broken. And with that much heaviness behind you, it's hard to play with a lot of confidence. Missed layups. Long shots that you should really only be launching if your name is Steph. Rough passes caused by a lack of offensive ingenuity or engine. Let's watch this play. After a missed 76er shot, promising rookie Asar Thompson receives the ball at half court. And mind you, Detroit is at 43 points and is over 2 minutes into the third quarter. So they're in a little bit of a rush to score. He drives aimlessly, kind of at the basket, kind of towards the corner, not even looking at the hoop. His two potential options in the wings are barely moving, and then when he rises into the air to choose a pass, there's really no good options. Killian Hayes is on his heels, and Cade Cunningham is still way behind the play. An errant pass attempt leads to a Tyrese Maxey steal and easy breakaway layup. I'm not even trying to blame Thompson here. The whole system is just uninspired YMCA level offense. Give someone the ball and hope that they can do something. But the Pistons don't even have shooting magic to rely on. The next trip down the floor, star guard Cade Cunningham is taking on his defender. He gets a step past him and looks up to see 4 red jerseys in front of him. Asar and James Wiseman are kind of open under the basket, but the play instead goes, Cade drives into the 7-foot-tall Embiid to try and get a really contested shot up, and Philadelphia comes down with the ball. This is a 22nd game in a row that the Pistons are going to lose, and they're clearly not trying anything new. The offense's best idea of a good outcome of a possession is leaving Killian Hayes to take contested mid-range jumpers. There's maximum 1 Piston going up to rebound the ball, and some of these turnovers can only be attributed to lapses of concentration. As the fourth quarter starts, the Pistons are sitting at an unimaginable 62 points, trailing by 32. Philly's lead would go on to balloon to 41. And this game wasn't just a fluke. They lost to the Nuggets without Jokic and Jamal Murray. They lost to the Brooklyn Nets, even though Cade scored 41. They lost to the Hawks, even though Malachi Flynn, of all players, dropped 50. And then, in back-to-back games afterward, he only had 3 points. One of the Pistons' longtime announcers declared, "This is painful. No one could have anticipated this." And here's the biggest issue. I'm not just cherry-picking bad clips or bad performances. The Pistons' offense was consistently stagnant across the board, and the defense must have been left behind when the Pistons moved from the Palace to Little Caesars Arena. Memories of the early 2000s Pistons that held teams to under 75 points are very, very faint. Detroit, Michigan is a city that is comfortable with grit, and its sports teams reflect that identity. Detroit fans are obsessively loyal and proud. Not in the same way that Boston or LA fans are proud of their legacy of constant winning, but they're proud. The Detroit Lions and Tigers are franchises that are absolutely familiar with taking the difficult path, and Detroit fans love them because of that. And in late 2023, these teams are filled with an aura of hope. The Lions are gearing up for an exciting and hopeful playoff campaign, and the Tigers are witnessing the emergence of pitcher Tarik Skubal, who would go on to win a unanimous Cy Young in 2024. But then there are the Pistons. They haven't won a playoff series since the mid-2000s, back when Chauncey Billups played at the Palace, and now they're chaining defeat after defeat. Team that's supposed to represent the grind, the bad boys. And in the 2023-2024 season, they didn't just lose. In a city full of teams clawing their way back, the Pistons were the only ones standing still. So then what changed? Let's take a look at a few possessions from this season's Detroit Pistons win against the 1-seed Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that a year earlier would have steamrolled the Pistons by halftime. Malik Beasley stays active on defense and reads an errant pass from Donovan Mitchell, and with energy, takes it up the court, while Asar Thompson sees an opening to crash the basket for a huge alley-oop. Here, Dennis Schroeder has the ball at half court, finds Beasley, who drops it right back to him and kicks out through an Isaiah Stewart screen. The ball is pinged back out to Beasley, who shoots. 3 points, but more than that, a proof of concept. It wasn't a forced shot, it wasn't a panic option. The Pistons ran a quick, efficient play that resulted in a Malik Beasley 3 in motion, which, as we know now, is a high percentage shot. In this play, Marcus Sasser has the ball and jab steps, but makes the right decision to then retreat. The ball goes to Ron Holland. He sizes up the Schroeder option in the corner, but goes back to Sasser, who drives, and draws in 3 defenders, leaving Isaiah Stewart open for a one-hand dunk. Every player has a role, and it looks like a real offense again, with trust and space and off-ball movement. Finally, the Pistons were speaking the same language. And not just on offense, it actually started on the defensive end. Last year, watching Detroit try and rotate felt like watching people run through water. But this year, they're helping early and communicating through screens. They're protecting the rim better. The Pistons went from dead last in defensive rating to middle of the pack, and it wasn't because they added an elite stopper. Granted, they do have an alien on defense in Asar, and his athleticism, added to Jalen Duren cleaning up the inside, and the hustle shown by the whole team, makes them a very tough team to attack. And honestly, teams are just scared of Detroit. The Pistons got mean again. You can almost see Ben Wallace and Bill Laimbeer out there on the court whenever Stu picks a fight with yet another opposing player who's bigger than him physically or a bigger star than him. This Pistons team is clearly not afraid of really anyone or anything, and this includes of taking lots of big shots. Malik Beasley has been the standout shooter, making clutch 3 after clutch 3, and of course, shimmy after shimmy in celebration, but we'll talk more about him later. Across the board, the shooting has improved at every level of the court, as the Pistons have gone from the worst shooting team in the league to a pretty good one. And that's not rocket science. You shoot better, you score more, and you win more. But one layer deeper, that kind of shooting threat opens up the floor so much, allowing cleaner drives, more open kickouts, and just a freer offense overall. And once the shots started falling, something else did too. Belief. This Pistons team believes they can win, and they're not wrong. This season, they've taken games from some of the top NBA teams, like the Clippers, the Lakers twice, the Knicks 3 times, and the Cavs with Cade on the bench. These weren't just luck, they were real, substantive wins. We're far removed from that 28 loss in a row Pistons team that looked more and more dejected each week we saw them. Now, the Pistons play basketball as a unit. They stand up for each other, and they believe they can beat anyone and will fight you if you challenge them. The vibes are just different. And if you ask me, that shift starts from the top. Monty Williams didn't lack experience or intelligence, but Monty Williams was not the right coach for the Detroit Pistons. Their biggest strength as a franchise was their young core of players, but you wouldn't know that from the rosters it actually played. As coach, Williams would run out the Pistons' more tenured starting 5 and then take them all off at once in favor of an all-bench lineup. The players who needed time to grow in the NBA sat on the bench while Cade was on the floor, and then when they did get to play, it was alongside other rotation guys. He inconsistently played the most exciting young players like Jaden Ivey. Roles were blurry. There was no sense of cause and effect. One night, Asar Thompson would guard the best player on the floor, and the next he'd play 14 minutes and sit on the bench to close the game. It became a loop of inconsistency and uncertainty. But Monty Williams had the biggest coaching contract in the league at the time. 6 years, $78.5 million. So, seemingly, Detroit was kind of stuck. To his credit, Monty Williams did take credit for that terrible loss streak, but taking credit doesn't justify his $13 million a year contract. Instead of doubling down, the Detroit front office made the difficult decision, and they admitted it wasn't working. Despite still owing $65 million to Williams, they fired him in the offseason, and they brought in JB Bickerstaff. Bickerstaff brought in structure and vision. He didn't try and overhaul the roster or try and reinvent anyone. He installed a basic but disciplined motion offense. He encouraged movement off ball, and on defense, he pulled back on excessive switching and anchored to simple things: tagging the roller, providing help early, communicating through screens, these things that they had seemingly forgotten how to do. He took pressure off of Cade and staggered the lineups to give his developing players more time on the court with stronger teammates. Bickerstaff wasn't doing anything revolutionary, but to the Pistons, it might as well have been. And the team responded, because for the first time in a long time, they understood what they were trying to do. Alongside the coaching change, the Detroit front office stacked smart player decisions on top of it to fill gaps. Malik Beasley, a quick trigger shooter who doesn't hesitate and doesn't overthink. He just lets it go. And for a team that spent years begging for spacing, his gravity from shooting changed everything. Cade and Ivy suddenly had room to breathe. Beasley gave the Pistons a legitimate floor spacer and was a hugely impactful addition, joining from free agency and then shooting the second most three-pointers in the league as a potential sixth man of the year. The Pistons drafted Ron Holland II, 5th overall, and he immediately brought the best kind of chaos. The kind that flies around the court, that forces deflections, that plays with urgency. Holland added athleticism and depth and was ready to contribute from day one with defensive intensity and guarding multiple positions. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a tenured sharpshooter, known for his ability to light up the scoreboard while also providing leadership and consistency. His veteran poise helped steady the team during tight games, and his three-point shooting gave Detroit another weapon on the perimeter. He doesn't need 20 shots. He just needs 2 open ones, and you can rest easy that he'll hit them both. Tobias Harris was the kind of savvy acquisition that added scoring and a sense of professionalism. Before joining Detroit, Tobias Harris looked washed and uninspired, but the Pistons proved that he was just undervalued. On the Pistons, Harris does the basic things well, and on a team that is still finding its footing, that's huge. The last piece was Dennis Schroeder, as a part of the trade that sent Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. Schroeder has been the NBA's journeyman over the past few seasons, with stints on more teams than you can count on one hand. But Detroit saw his potential and gave him a home, running much of the offense through him and letting him flourish on the ball. But every step forward also required letting go. James Wiseman was a swing that simply didn't connect. Detroit gave him time, but then time ran out. They moved on, and they were able to build better because of it. Additionally, in 2023-24, Killian Hayes played the 9th most minutes for the Pistons. The Pistons waived Hayes at the deadline, and in free agency, he was picked up by none of the other teams. Many franchises handcuff themselves with sunk costs, sticking with expensive coaching contracts or players that the front office is in love with, despite them not being the right fit for the team. Detroit instead made swift and ultimately necessary decisions that allowed the Pistons to fully embrace their new identity, one focused on depth and development. But more than anything else, the Pistons got out of their own way and let the young core grow. There's a temptation in the NBA to just start over after a terrible season, especially one that's as historically terrible as Detroit's last one was. Instead, the Pistons didn't trade away Jaden Ivey after a shaky sophomore season. They didn't panic about Asar Thompson's jumper, and they didn't overreact to Jalen Duren's foul trouble. And of course, they let Cade be a star. Cade Cunningham didn't come out of the gate this season demanding attention. He came out demanding control. He took offensive responsibility and owned it with a smoother handle, sharper reads, and a calmer pulse. He's not loud. He's trying to solve basketball games. The turnovers dropped, the elbow jumper feels like a layup, and his touch around the rim is as good as anyone's. Asar admittedly still can't shoot, but basically everything else is there. He guards 1 through 4, he flies in for rebounds, changing games with his energy, with his disruption. His ceiling is higher than almost anyone else, except for, of course, his identical twin in Houston. Jalen Duren has turned his promise into presence. He's the foundation of this physical Detroit team, picking up rebounds and protecting the rim. He does a lot of little things that go unnoticed, sealing the defender on a roll and contesting without fouling, boosting the production of the rest of the team. And the best part, you can see that these guys like playing together. They rotate for each other, pick each other up, make the extra pass, and this rising tide is lifting all of their boats. Detroit didn't try and trade the future for the present. They didn't chase quick fixes. They trusted the people they'd already chosen. The Pistons didn't make a leap because of a single move or a miracle, but they have rebuilt trust with their fans and with their team. And yeah, there's still work to do. Their ceiling doesn't look to be championship level just yet. But the pride and the fight and the belief is back, and that is triumph enough.